My name is Rachel Moore. I never imagined I'd become a stepmother, and certainly not one who'd be fighting so hard to earn the trust of a teenage boy who clearly wanted nothing to do with me. When I married David Moore, I knew I was stepping into a unique situation. David was a loving man, patient and kind, but he came with emotional baggage, the kind that couldn't be seen but was deeply felt. His first wife, Claire, had passed away suddenly 3 years before we met. Their son, Josh, had been only 13 at the time. Now 16, Josh was a tall, quiet boy with shaggy brown hair that always seemed to fall into his eyes. He wasn't rude. He was just distant, like he was always somewhere else. Like he had built an invisible wall and dared anyone to climb over it. Especially me. David and I had been married for almost a year when I started to feel the weight of the silence between me and Josh. It wasn't outright hostility. It was the absence of connection that hurt the most. David often tried to encourage a relationship between us, but he never pushed too hard. I appreciated that. I wasn't trying to replace Claire. I just wanted Josh to know I cared. It was a Thursday afternoon when things changed. David was out of town on a business trip, something that happened often. I was alone in the house with Josh, not that it made much of a difference. We mostly lived around each other, rarely interacting beyond a nod or a quiet, "Hey." That day I had decided to bake. Baking was always something that grounded me. When I was little, my grandma used to make this old-fashioned chocolate cake, rich, moist, and topped with whipped cream she made by hand. It was one of those things that instantly brought back memories of childhood. Comfort, warmth, love. So I thought, why not? I pulled out my grandmother's old recipe, slightly stained with time, and started gathering ingredients. I wasn't doing it for Josh, not really. But maybe subconsciously, I was hoping he'd at least smell something good and wander into the kitchen. 2 hours later I was placing the cake on the cooling rack, the whole house filled with the sweet scent of cocoa and vanilla. I whipped the cream with a touch of vanilla and sugar, just the way Grandma used to. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. Josh stood in the doorway, eyes narrowed slightly. "What's that?" he asked, his voice neutral. I turned a little startled. "It's chocolate cake. My grandma's recipe." He didn't say anything. Just stood there, arms folded, like he wasn't sure if he should stay or go. I picked up a knife and carefully sliced a piece. "Want to try it?" I offered, placing the slice on a plate. He hesitated. I could see the internal battle in his eyes. Curiosity versus distance. After a moment, he walked over and took the plate. I watched him take a bite. His eyes widened slightly, and for a split second, something flickered across his face. Something soft. Something I hadn't seen before. "This tastes like my mom's cake," he said quietly. Froze. "I didn't know Claire baked," I said gently. "She used to make a cake like this. Not all the time. But for my birthdays mostly." There was a long pause. He looked down at the cake and took another bite, slower this time. "I thought I'd never taste it again," he whispered. I swallowed hard, unsure of what to say. "I'm glad you like it." That small exchange shifted something between us. Later that evening, as I cleaned up the kitchen, Josh lingered nearby, something he never did. "You made that from scratch?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied. "My grandma taught me when I was about your age." He nodded slowly. "Can you show me sometime?" It took everything in me not to cry right then. "Of course," I said, trying to sound casual. "We can bake together this weekend if you want." From that day on, things began to change. Josh started coming into the kitchen more often, helping me prep vegetables or stir sauces. We started talking about school, about music, even about Claire. He shared stories about her, things she loved, things they did together. I listened, never pushing, always letting him lead the way. One Saturday morning we were making pancakes when he said something that stuck with me. "You don't try too hard," he said, flipping a pancake with surprising skill. "What do you mean?" I asked, amused. "You don't try to be her. My mom." I paused, unsure how to respond. He continued. "Other people like my grandma or my aunt, they always try to fill that space. It's like they think I'll forget her if no one steps in. Put the spatula down. Josh, I would never try to take her place. She was your mom. I just want to be here for you, in whatever way you're comfortable with. He nodded, then gave a small smile. You're cool, Rachel. It may have been the smallest compliment in the world, but to me it was everything. As months passed, our bond grew stronger. Josh even started calling me Ratch sometimes, especially when he wanted something, like money for a video game or help with homework. One evening, David came home from a trip and found us sitting at the dining table, laughing over a batch of failed muffins. "What's going on here?" he asked, eyes wide with surprise. Josh grinned. "She let me put hot sauce in the batter." David looked horrified. "Why would you?" "It was a science experiment," I said, giggling. It was the first time I saw David genuinely relax around Josh and me together. Like he finally believed we were becoming a family. The real turning point came the following year, around the anniversary of Claire's death. I knew it was a hard time for Josh. He usually locked himself in his room and didn't talk to anyone. But this time I knocked gently on his door. "I made the cake," I said softly. "The one you like." He opened the door slowly. His eyes were red, but he smiled. We sat on the porch that night, under a blanket, eating cake and watching the stars. "Thanks, Ratch," he said. "For not trying to fix everything. Just being here." And I realized then that sometimes the smallest gestures, like offering someone a slice of cake, can lead to the biggest breakthroughs. Josh never forgot his mother, and I never wanted him to. But over time he allowed space for me too. Not as a replacement, but as someone who cared. Someone who stayed. So when people ask me what changed our relationship, I always smile and say, I offered my stepson to taste it, and he was shocked. Not by the cake, but by the fact that someone actually saw him, remembered his pain, and stood beside him through it. And that made all the difference.